Oh, this is a better class than the last one. So this is a better class than the last one.
Yeah.
Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Let me formally welcome you to Cedron Training Batch 14. I hope you all rested very well. It's a pleasure to meet you for the first time. I've been in correspondence with most of you the past week or thereabout. My name is Oguche, Dr. Oguche. Ordinarily, I should have taken this class yesterday. It's always our foundation class. But some other prior engagements made that impossible for me. So it's my pleasure to be a part of your day today. And I hope we'll have a very good interactive training this morning. The topic we're taking today is entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for AGSMEIS. Before we start that, you can see on your screen, we like to pose this, we like to start with this screen. We'd like to start with a picture on this screen of an elderly gentleman and a young lady where he's giving her some advice, advising her that if your salary is your only source of income, you're one step away from poverty. It's a common saying I'm sure you're all familiar with. It's very common among the labor unions where each time they want to go out on protest, asking for salary increment, the talk is that our take-home pay cannot take us home. Okay? Of course, we all know what the salaries are like in Nigeria today. We have a minimum wage increase lately, but that has been eroded, as it were, with all the other increases that we've had in the last few months, from electricity tariff to fuel pump. Electricity tariff has been suspended, but I'm sure sooner or later it will find a way of sneaking itself back. So whatever little gains people have had with the area of minimum wage has been taken with the other hand. So the advice we always like to give is that everybody should strive to have an alternative means of a second source of income, a stream of income, so that you don't just rely on salaries. That's for those of you who are currently working, whether in the private or the public sector. And then, of course, those who are involved in business, you also do not have to have only one line of business. The whole idea is to try and diversify and then have multiple sources of income. That's the best way to be able to survive in our country today, not only in our country, but across the world, really. So what we'll be doing is we'll be giving this foundation paper, this foundation lecture on entrepreneurship, what entrepreneurship is all about, who is the entrepreneur, how do you become one, and the skills that you require in that regard. So that's what we'll be looking at in this paper. The training for AGSMEIS loan scheme is entrepreneurship training. There's the other one, of course, for vocation training, for those who are in vocations already. But for this purpose, it's basically entrepreneurship training and then the management of small businesses, because the whole idea is that if you're going to entrepreneurship, you are starting a small business. So this training is supposed to give you an idea of the kind of how you manage those small business. Yesterday, we started with feasibility studies and business plan. It should have been coming up today, and my paper should have come yesterday to lay the foundation. So you just bear with us, and I'm sure you will not miss much. Tomorrow, we'll continue along the same line with the area of business management by looking at financial planning and basic bookkeeping. That is the next paper to help you with how you plan your finances and then how you keep your books. Because every business that you do, you should have a decent book keeping strategy. If not, your income will be coming in and you'll be eating it up, running your own business as it were. Then the next day we'll be looking at sales, effective sales, and then marketing strategy. Because whatever business you do, the whole idea is profitability, making profit. Okay, and how you make profit is through sales. If you don't sell the products, sell their services, you won't be able to make any income to be able to repay a loan. So we'll be looking at effective sales strategy, and then the effective sales, and then the marketing strategy. That's what we're looking at. And then on the fourth day, we'll be looking at business law, registration requirements and compliance requirements in doing business in the Nigerian environment. You're all aware, I'm sure, the government keeps emphasizing the fact that we need to ease the way of doing business in our country. So ease of doing business is a major consideration, because it's also one of the ways in which a country's economy is assessed. How easy is it for you to be able to come into a country and do business? How easy is it for you to be able to register a company? Okay, what are the requirements for you to be able to survive in doing business? So all of those things are the things we'll be looking at. We'll be looking at the local laws. We'll be looking at the laws that you need to fulfill in order to survive in doing business. If you are one who goes out looking for contracts, for example, by the time you see the advert, you see a whole range of issues in terms of pre-qualification requirement. They list out all of the things that you need to have before you do business in Nigeria, from registration with CAC, from income tax, with FIRS, with NSITL, with ITL, with PENCOM, with all of those things. They are all compliance requirements before you do business in Nigeria. For you to register a company, previously it would take you up to a month, 2, 3, but for ease of doing business, all of those things are being simplified now. These days, you don't even need a lawyer to register your own business. These days, you can, from the comfort of your sitting room, your bedroom, you can register your own company without necessarily going through a lawyer, simply on your devices. That is all of the issues coming in with regards to ease of doing business. And Nigeria is chalking up some credit in that area of ease of doing business. And then on the final day, we will again be looking at the loan application forms, which we complete. Okay, I'm sure some of you have completed the forms, and many still have not. So we'll put you through is a practical session on how you complete the loans application forms before business plans are developed. And those who will be doing the business plan on their own, I will also put you through on how you complete those forms and how you access the NASA Microfinance Bank portal for you to generate and do your business plan. So that's basically the topics we run in the 5-day training. And then, of course, all of it is to give you an idea, a background with respect to managing small businesses, entrepreneurship, and the like. So we'll start. Okay, so let's start by looking at the topic. Our topic is entrepreneurship and skills acquisition for AGSMEIS. Okay, what does it entail? Like I said, the training objectives are understanding the AGSMEIS loan scheme, to expose participants to the objectives, components and processes of achieving the goals of AGSMEIS, to understand the concept of entrepreneurship, to expose participants to the skills required for entrepreneurship, and then to prepare participants for a life of entrepreneurship. So these are the training objectives, understanding the AGSMEIS loan scheme. Okay, so what is the AGSMEIS loan scheme? We'll break it down for you. And then to expose participants to the objectives. Okay, what are the objectives of the AGSMEIS loan scheme? What are the components? AGSMEIS is an acronym. So what are the components of this acronym? Okay, and then what are the processes of achieving the AGSMEIS? Okay, then understand the concept of entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? We are all, as it were, budding entrepreneurs or already entrepreneurs in your own rights. Okay, do you know what entrepreneurship is all about, or you simply just went into business with the hope of running a business and making some money. Okay, so we'll break down the whole concept of entrepreneurship, what it entails, what an entrepreneur does, and who the entrepreneur is. And then to expose participants to the skills required for entrepreneurship, and then to prepare participants for a life of entrepreneurship, because entrepreneurship is not just a short race, it is a marathon. Okay, it's something that when you start, it's a lifetime endeavor. So we'll give you a breakdown on how you succeed along that line. Right, so this is our training outline. Defining AGSMEIS, okay, its objectives, components, and processes of attaining its goals. Defining entrepreneurship, we'll give you a definition of entrepreneurship and what it entails. We'll look at the types of businesses and vocational skills that we have in the country today and across the world, really. Then considerations before starting a business. What are the considerations? What do you need to consider before you start a business? Do you just jump into, you have a business idea, do you just jump into the field and then start the business? What are the things you need to look at? What are the things you need to consider before starting that line of business? Hurdles. Everything that we do in life, there are hurdles. Okay, there are barriers, there are challenges. So what are the hurdles that people who want to start businesses encounter? Okay, sources of funding. What are the sources of funding for small and medium enterprises? These are the things that we'll be looking at in this paper. Right, so let's get started. Okay, this is okay, so let's start by defining AGSMEIS. What does the acronym AGSMEIS mean? Okay, we said AGSMEIS is an acronym. An acronym is a word that you form from the first letters of the sentence. So AGSMEIS stands for Agribusiness, Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. The AG stands for Agribusiness, and of course the SME inside, Small and Medium Enterprises Investment Scheme. So that's what AGSMEIS stands for. That's what AGSMEIS means. So what is AGSMEIS? It is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria aimed at supporting the federal government agenda towards promotion of agricultural businesses and small and medium enterprises as vehicles for sustainable economic development and employment. Okay, so AGSMEIS basically is an initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria, not just the Central Bank of Nigeria, but also the Committee of Bankers. The National Microfinance Bank is owned by the Committee of Bankers and Central Bank of Nigeria and NIPOS. They are the three basic shareholders. The Committee of Bankers has 50% shares in the National Microfinance Bank. Central Bank has 40%, and NIPOS has 10%. NIPOS 10% share is in the area of providing accommodation for National Microfinance Bank in their office blocks. You all know that in the 774 local government councils that we have in the country, there is a major NIPOS office in each of these local governments. So with this access, what the bank decided, what the NIPOS decided to do is to carve out a section in each of their offices for the purpose of accommodating National Microfinance Bank. That is where their own input comes from. Okay, and then of course the Committee of Bankers, these are the management of all the money deposit banks that we have in the country, where they contribute 5% of their annual profit, okay, as the capital base into National Microfinance Bank. And of course, Central Bank, represented by NISA itself, has the other 40%. So the Committee of Bankers and CBN came together and decided that, look, with the way things are going, we need to see how we can support the federal government in the area of diversification of our economy. We are all aware that Nigeria's economy is basically dependent on oil, the oil industry. Okay, and each time we have any challenge with the prices of oil in the international market, our economy takes a hit. Okay, last week we went into recession because of similar challenge. early this year with the COVID situation, there was oil glut all over the place. The entire world was shut down. The industries, no industry was functioning anywhere in the world. International travels, we all saw, came to a standstill. There were no flights anywhere. Nobody was going anywhere. Okay, all of these things, the industries were shut down. All of these are depending on oil to power this industrial base. And without any of these outlets demanding for oil, what we had was a challenge of glut all over the place, and the prices of oil in the international market dipped from $60 per barrel to as low as under $20 per barrel. So the situation was such that the revenue, Nigeria's revenue, was massively affected, and the challenge therefore was that the government now started looking staring in the face of another round of recession. Okay, so these are some of the issues that the Committee of Bankers at CBN looked at, and then decided that look, the federal government has already been talking substantially in the area of diversifying its economy. And one of the areas that they have identified is in agricultural businesses and then promotion of small and medium enterprises. So one of the ways that these bodies decided that they can support the government is by setting up this Master Microfinance Bank that will be able to give soft loans to Nigerian citizens to be able to assist them in starting their own businesses and diversifying the economy, as it were. And then secondly, in the area of employment, we're all aware that today, many of our young men, fresh young graduates from our universities, who after the NYSC suddenly find themselves jobless. They walk the streets looking for white-collar jobs, and they cannot find. Okay, and then because of the COVID situation, also we found a situation where many of our organizations, many of our banks, industries, and all of that that shut down for over 4 or 5 months, suddenly had to lay off their staff. We are aware of situations where banks, for example, shut down their branches, and instead of deploying their staff, decided to shut down the branches along with the staff. So many were thrown into the unemployment market. So part of the initiative of the Committee of Bankers at CBN is how can we help the government in the area of unemployment? Okay, and one of those ways is that those who are losing their jobs and those who cannot find employment should be able to access these soft loans, and start their own businesses and become employers, self-employed, and even employers of others who are also seeking for jobs. So these are the issues that drove the CBN and then the Committee of Bankers to come up with the initiative of this AGSMEIS loan scheme, and then of course the establishment of the NISA Microfinance Bank. Okay, so let's look at the objective of AGSMEIS. What's the objectives? What are the objectives of AGSMEIS? To ensure small and medium enterprises have access to finance. First and foremost, to ensure that they have access to finance, to generate much needed employment opportunities, to boost the managerial capacity of Greek businesses, small and medium enterprises, as pipelines of growing enterprises that become huge corporations, and then to develop the agricultural value chain and ensure sustainable agricultural practice. So these are the objectives of AGSMEIS. Okay, first and foremost, to provide access to finance. Okay, one of the things that those of you who are on this program today have the aspiration and the ambition of starting your own business. But you find that one of the key and critical issues in this desire is that finances are not easily accessible. You can hardly find finances to access. Okay, if you choose to take a loan from a bank, for example, the interest rate is so prohibitive. You go to a bank, for example, microfinance bank or commercial bank to take a loan facility, you'll be charged something in the region of 26%. Okay. Anybody that pays 26% on any loan, of course, knows that unless you are into some other line of business, definitely you will not be able to sustain that kind of loan. You will not be able to pay back that kind of loan unless you are into something dubious that brings in money for you. If not, you will simply be consistently indebted. The business will not grow, and you will not be able to generate the money to be able to pay back that loan. So one of the whole aspiration of the AGSMEIS, the objective of AGSMEIS is to be able to provide this kind of easily accessible finance for those who want to go into SME business, not only SME, but also agri-business. And this they can do through the provision of soft loans, collateral-free loans, with a highly reduced interest rate of just about 5% for this year, and maybe 9% by next year. So that basically is what's informed the AGSMEIS loan scheme. To generate the much needed employment opportunities, I've talked about that already. We've seen so many people losing their jobs, so many of our young men working and roaming the streets without employment. So with the provision, the objective of AGSMEIS is to be able to see how we'll be able to make provision for this loan scheme for people to be able to become self-employed and be able to employ others. Then to boost the managerial capacity of agribusinesses, SMEs. Because this training, I've just given you a highlight of all the issues we'll be looking at in the course of this training. And those are supposed to provide you with the basic understanding, basic managerial skills that you require in managing your own small business. That is a major objective of this loan scheme. And then to develop the agricultural value chain. Agric is a very, very vast field. Okay, agriculture is not just crop farming. There are a whole range of other things. Okay, there are areas like the poultry, like the fisheries, like the snail farming, and the whole sort of others. And then there are the processing end, and then the business end of agribusiness, of agricultural sector. These are the value chains. The food processing, okay, the value addition to our raw materials, the massive raw materials that we produce in this country. All of these are the value chain. All of the things that you add to your agricultural sector, your agricultural production, that enhances the value of your agriculture. These are the value chains that we are looking at. Okay, so the AGSMEIS loan scheme is not just supporting crop farming, but also those aspects of the agricultural system that adds value to whatever our outputs are in agriculture. Okay, so components of AGSMEIS. Now let's look at the components of AGSMEIS. We've looked at the objective, we've looked at the definition, the breakdown, the defining AGSMEIS. We've looked at the objectives, and now what are the components? Okay, what are the components of AGSMEIS loan scheme? As defined, AGSMEIS consists of agribusiness, small and medium enterprises, as a vehicle for economic development and employment. So that is what AGSMEIS is all about. There are two main components, the agribusiness and then the small and medium enterprises. Okay, so let's look at the two major components. That's the agribusiness, for example. In 2019, agriculture contributed around 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, surpassed only by industry at 27.38%, and services sector at 49.73%. Although Nigeria depends heavily on the oil sector for its budgetary revenues, Nigeria is predominantly an agricultural society, with approximately 70% of the population engaged in agricultural production at subsistence level. So what I was saying here, in the area of agribusiness, as of 2019, that's just last year, agriculture contributed 21.91% to Nigeria's GDP, surpassed only by industry and services. That is massive, okay? Compared to the oil sector, which provides the bulk of Nigeria's budgetary revenue. The oil sector, Nigeria derives about 95% of its export earnings and 7% of government revenue from the oil sector. But in terms of GDP contribution, it is less than 10%. Okay, in 2015, it contributed just 9%, and in 2016, only 8%. So you can see the difference between the aggregate contribution to the GDP and that of the oil. In as much as the oil contributes up to 95% of export earnings and 70% of government revenue, but when it comes to the GDP contribution, which is a map of a country's gross development program, that is way surpassed by agriculture. So agriculture, as it is, definitely performs better than the oil industry in GDP considerations. That is where the whole difference is. Okay, so it is this trend, that the trend in the agricultural sector's contribution to the GDP that the government wants to leverage on. Okay, the government has seen the potential of agric. It has seen its contribution to our GDP as compared to the oil sector. That is why it wants to diversify away from the oil sector, oil economy, and then see how they can contribute substantially to the agricultural sector. Okay, this is what has informed the current government's effort, and then the devoted effort to initiatives like the Uncle Boras program and now the AGSMEIS loan scheme. So what we're saying basically here is that the government has seen the potential, potential and importance of agriculture to GDP contribution, and it has come up with a number of initiatives. The first is the Uncle Boras program. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Uncle Boras program. This again is another initiative of the Central Bank of Nigeria, where it is giving soft loans, as it were, to farmers in the agri sector, especially in rice farming. And we're all familiar with the kind of revolution going on in the country today in the area of rice production. Nigeria today is the largest producer of rice in Africa and the 8th largest in the world. Okay, this is compared to the last few years when Nigeria was a net importer of rice, with substantial amount of our external reserves going into the importation of rice. And these are rice that we import from places like Thailand, Myanmar, Pakistan, India, and Indonesia, and Bangladesh. Okay, contributing to their own economy, contributing to their own employment generation, contributing to employment in their own in those countries, while, as it were, diminishing our own potential in this country, throwing many of our young men onto the streets, and then we are there depending on importation of rice. Okay, and these are rice that in many instances have been stockpiled for over 10 years, not fresh enough, not hygienic enough. But since the government's ban on the importation of rice, okay, the situation has been quite difficult. All right, we'll have to concede to that, but that is the way to go. And with the injection of so much money into the agri sector, especially into rice production, we've seen the wonders happening in places like Kebbi, in places like Ebonyi State, in places like Benue, Ogun, Lagos, and a host of other states in the country that are investing massively in rice production. The rice value chain is so massive that we've seen so many people who are previously unemployed. They have gone back into the fields, into our farms, and are contributing as well substantially to the agricultural revolution that we're having in the country today. Okay, so that is where the government intends to diversify. That is the area the government is focusing its attention with respect to the diversification of the economy away from oil. Okay, so the AGSMEIS loan scheme is another initiative, just like the Uncle Boras program, targeted, as it were, in agricultural businesses and then the SME component of it. Right. So this drive is in recognition of the contribution of agriculture to economic growth and development, in providing food to the expanding population, increasing the demand for industrial products, providing local exchange earnings for import of capital goods, increasing social income, in providing employment and improving the welfare of citizens. Okay, it is these gains that explain the need to support the growth and expansion of agri and agro-allied industry and its associated value chain. So what we're saying basically here is that it's the recognition of the place of agri in the area of economic growth, in the area of development, okay, in the area of providing food for our expanding population. Today, Nigeria's population is said to be over 200 million, okay? And ours has been a country that has been dependent on the importation of food. How long can we continue to depend on importation of food or importation of rice and all manners of food into our country to support our teeming population? Definitely the resources are not going to be there. So the one way that we can overcome that is to go back to the field and then grow what we eat, and then eat what we grow in our own country. That is the only way to provide food security for our people, for our teeming population. That is the only way for us to be able to provide for our people in the country. And that is the only way we can uplift our people out of the poverty that we find in the country today. With the population growing exponentially, there is no way that we can continue to support on importation of food to support our population. Also, increasing the demand for industrial products. As the agriculture is expanding, of course, we are also producing items that go into industrial production. Okay, it provides the earnings from agricultural output with added value. Also increases our foreign exchange earning, which we again use in importing capital goods for our industries. Okay, increasing the social income. I've just talked about the miracle happening in places like Kebbi, where more and more of our people who have gone back into farms today are self-sustaining, not waiting cap in hand for the government to provide their means of livelihood. Many of them today we hear are buying cars, buying bicycles, taking themselves to Hajj and pilgrimages without depending on government support. And then, of course, the employment potential of that. It has taken so many people out of the field, out of the streets into the fields where they are finding gainful employment. Okay, so there is therefore the government has seen, the Committee of Bankers and CBN has seen the need, okay, to support the growth and expansion of the agri and agro-allied industry and its associated value chain. That is what the AGSMEIS sets out to do, and it is very, very clear and important that we all key into it. So in my opening, in our opening letter, so we congratulated you on taking the initiative of taking the challenge of the federal government to seek access to this loan facility to be able to contribute your own quota towards the diversification of our economy and towards providing employment for our people. Because the belief is that the government's policy is that if you are able to access 5 million for startups, for example, for startup companies, for example, you're expected to employ at least one person. If you are able to access 10 million, which is for existing businesses, you are expected to at least take on 2 people in terms of employment. So if all of the people that have applied for this loan are able to bring in 1 or 2 people, of course, we are doing a lot towards the government's policy of taking 100 million people out of unemployment in the next 10 years. So all of these things are actually tied together. Okay, they are all tied together in the area of economic growth, in the area of employment opportunities. All right. So the second component of AGSMEIS. Let's now look at the second component of AGSMEIS, and that is the SME component. The SME component, that is small and medium enterprises component of AGSMEIS. We've defined AGSMEIS for you, we have broken it down for you, we've looked at the component, we see the AG stands for agribusinesses, then the SME, which is the small and medium enterprises. So let's look at this SME component of AGSMEIS. The SME sector is the backbone of major developed economies in the world, as well as important contributor to employment, economic, and export growth. Okay, so what we're saying basically here is that SMEs, the way we see SMEs, there is always the tendency to underrate the SME sector. But here we are saying that it is the backbone of major developed economies across the world. Most of the major companies we see today in the world started as SMEs. Okay, the popular saying that from younger corns grow mighty oaks typifies that situation. Industries, commercial enterprises like Apple Computers, like Microsoft, like Facebook today, all started as SMEs. Okay? These 3 companies started from the barest minimum you can imagine. Apple, for example, started from the garage of the parents of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak when they were just students. Okay? Microsoft by Bill Gates started also from his father's garage. Okay? Facebook started just in 2004 from the Harvard dormitory of Mark Zuckerberg. But today, when you look at these SMEs, they today are massive international companies. Okay, the Apple company today has a net revenue of over $2 trillion. Compared to Nigeria as a whole, Nigeria's revenue is just $448 billion. And one company alone has $2 trillion. So in comparison, SME, and Apple, of course, like I said, started as a small SME in the garage. Today, it's a massive industry the world over. Most of us today have iPhones, have iPads, have iWallets, iWatches, and Apple computer. Those are the products of that SME that started in the 80s in the garage of two young men, parents of two young men. So that is where what SMEs are all about. We'll be looking at examples of SMEs, other SMEs, and then we'll be looking at SMEs also that started from such humble background in Nigeria today. But that is the position of SME's contribution to the country's employment and economic and export growth. According to the Nigerian SME survey by PwC 2009, in Nigeria, SMEs contribute 48% of the national GDP, okay, and account for 96% of businesses and 48% of employment. That is massive, okay? We have seen that of Agric, which we say was 21.91%, okay? But SMEs contribute 48% of national GDP and 96% of the businesses, all the businesses we have in the country, 96% of them are SMEs. And then in terms of employment, they contribute 48% of employment in the country. Okay? The SMEs in Nigeria constitute a total number of about 17.4 million jobs, for 17.4 million businesses. They account for over 50% of industrial jobs and 90% of manufacturing sector in terms of enterprises. So you can see the massive contribution of SMEs in Nigeria at that level, at the level they are, a total of about 17.4 million, and they account for 50% of industrial jobs. So most of the jobs in the industrial sector, 50% of them are SME related, and nearly 90%, most of the manufacturing sector, 90% of the manufacturing businesses and enterprises are SMEs. That is substantial, that is massive. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the Small and Medium Enterprises Agency of Nigeria, the SME sector in Nigeria is strategically positioned to absorb 80% of jobs, improve per capita income, increase value addition to raw material supply, improve import earnings, enhance capacity utilization in key industry, and unlock economic expansion and GDP growth. So that is, in summary, what the findings of the National Bureau of Statistics and SMEIDEN. SMEIDEN is the Small and Medium Enterprises Development Agency. In Nigeria, we have a whole agency devoted to the promotion of SMEs in the country. And they are saying that strategically, the SME sector is strategically positioned to absorb up to 80% of the jobs, which is to say that Nigerians don't have to sit down and look up to employment opportunities, okay, look up for white-collar jobs, but they can go into the SME sector and be able to, on their own, start new businesses that will be able to provide employment opportunities that will be able to absorb up to 80% of the jobs. I've just given you what the AGSMEIS expectations are, that if you're able to take 5 million naira loan, you're expected to at least engage to employ one person. If you are taking up to 10 million, you should be able to employ up to 10 million, two people. So if you are in the SME sector, that is the expectation. That is expected that with your own little contribution, you should be able to contribute towards the 80% of the jobs in the SMEs. And then, of course, in the area of per capita growth, import earnings, and then capacity utilization, and then the GDP growth. So that is how massive the SME sector is, and that is how massive the SME's contribution is. Okay, it is this potential which the government wants to explore and expand, but you realize that there exists a missing middle, which is that SMEs still find it hard to access funds. Okay, the AGSMEIS loan scheme is therefore government's response and development and growth. What we're saying basically here is that the government has realized the potential in the SMEs, okay? 50% of industrial jobs, 48% of employment opportunities, okay? And then up to 80% capacity to absorb up to 80% of industrial jobs. That is massive. So government has seen the potential of the SMEs, but then it has found that there is what they call the missing middle. There is a missing middle. With all the potentials that the SME has, there is a challenge, there is a problem in promoting and developing the SME sector. And what is this challenge that is called the missing middle? Access to funds. Remember, I mentioned that one of the key objectives of the AGSMEIS loan scheme is the provision of finances to SMEs. So the government has confirmed that, look, there is a missing middle. There is SMEs finding it hard to access funds because when you try to seek for funds to start your own business, you are paying, you will be charged about 26% in terms of interest rate in the banks, in the commercial banks, in the microfinance banks. So that is something the government has identified, and it needed solution to that. Okay, and the solution is the AGSMEIS loan scheme. The AGSMEIS loan scheme is the government's response and solution to the missing middle. Okay, and how does it intend to do that? By providing affordable and easily accessible funds to this vibrant and explosive sector, which has the potential to be a middle backbone for Nigeria's economic development. So the AGSMEIS loan scheme is government's own way of responding to the challenge of the missing middle, the challenge of lack of access to funds by providing affordable and easily accessible funds. And these funds will be provided by the government through collateral-free loans, no guarantors, no collaterals, 5% interest rate. That there can't be anything like that again. Okay, doing away with the prohibitive interest rate for people who want to access loans. Right. So that is the introductory part of this paper, looking at the AGSMEIS loan scheme, its objective, its components, and its potential. So we are now going to the second section of this paper, which is entrepreneurship. Okay, what is entrepreneurship? But before we go to that second session, we'll open the floor so that if you have any questions you want to ask, if there are any things that you don't understand and you want to share with us, any contributions, then we'll do that before we proceed to the next session. So we'll be looking back at our introductory section on the AGSMEIS loan scheme, its components, its objectives, and then and the definition, so that if you have any question in that regard, you can ask the question before we proceed with entrepreneurship. Okay? All right, so we're opening the class now for discussion. Please open the class for us.
That's like 2,000, and they will be paid by getting water. They will spread it.
Spread it out. Okay. All right. So the class is open now. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask a question. Yeah, I can see Deola's hand is up. Oh no. Okay. No. All right. No. So, if you have any question, please ask. Mrs. Awode, Ngozi Awode, you have any questions, madam?
Sorry, I'm meeting on Zoom. That's what I'm doing. And now, what's the time now?
Sorry?
By 12:15. I just do my own presentation and leave. It's just 15 minutes, 12:15 to 12:30.
Daniel Ekeze, are you with us, please, or you are discussing something else? Daniel Ekeze, are you with us or discussing something else? Any questions? Yes, Madam Judith, you have any question? Madam Ngozi, you have any question? Can't hear you. Unmute your mic. We can't hear you, Madam Ngozi. Okay, go ahead. Can't hear you. Hmm? Can you remove your earpiece and speak into the phone? Into the piece there, right? Remove it, let's see. Remove your earpiece and talk to us. Unplug it.
Then you bring the food set.
Yeah, go ahead. Unplug the earpiece. Unplug the earpiece. Okay, go ahead, listen.
Enough. What's salary?
Talk directly, unplug the earpiece and talk directly. All right, it's like we're having problems there. Okay, any other questions? Infinix 54 or S4? Yeah, Infinix. Okay, we have some questions on the chat box. It says you are expected to do what previous lecture. Okay. Can you post your scores? Yeah. Okay, there's a question from Ngozi already. Okay, for someone that wants to access 5 million loan, how many staff does such a person need to have in employment? Okay, well, like we said, you are expected to at least employ one additional person, okay? One additional person for their business. Of course, naturally, you won't be able to do the business all by yourself, but the bank expects that at least you should be able to employ one additional person to join you in the business. If you are getting up to 10 million, you're expected to at least employ up to 2 people. That's the expectation. Right. Daniel Ekeze, yeah, you have a question? You can unmute your mic. Daniel Ekeze, unmute your mic if you have a question. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, you know, go ahead.
I want to ask you about employing 1 or 2 persons. Yes, when it comes to hiring a few persons that will assist, is there a place to take them on a retention basis or take them as casuals?
As casual? Take them as what?
I'm asking.
Yes.
On a retention basis. Take them on the retention. So when they see what they need to be done, and you don't bring them in, when that job is done, they can just go elsewhere. Once you need their services, you also bring them in.
Yeah, of course, any employment, any job that you do, any business that you run, nothing says that if you employ anybody, you have to keep him for life. If you are done with that business, that phase of the business, and you choose not to retain him, you can dispense with his job. Or if you are diversifying to other areas and he doesn't fit into it, then of course you can do away with his appointment. Nobody says that you have to keep him for eternity. Okay, if you are bringing him in because he has certain expertise that you require, when the services are done, you then let him go. He would have also acquired some experience and all that to go and pursue some other things, really. So there's nothing circumstance or nothing that ties you perpetually to that individual. All right. Mr. Abidoko Victor, would have appreciated if you can clad yourself, because there are other people who are watching, so that we are all formally, at least if we have to expose ourselves, we don't have to expose our chest and other areas. Yeah. All right, Victor Abidaku, you have anything to say? You have a question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay. Considering you said if you have 10 million, you're expected to employ 2 persons. So that person we are going to employ, are you the one that will bring the person, or will bring the person we want?
No, you are the one to employ the person you want, the kind of services that he has to provide. So you are the one that will have to employ him. That's the expectation, really, because nobody expects you, if you are running a rice processing mill, for example, or a tailoring shop, that you do everything. You go to any tailor shop, there are likely to be 2, 3, or 4 machines. You alone can't be doing all of that at the same time. You have people who are cutting the materials for you. There are those who are stitching. There are those who are doing the buttons and things like that. There are those who are doing the ironing. Okay, so there are various skills requirements, skill set you require in running that kind of business. Who are not the ones to do that? You know what you want, so it's you who will bring them in, negotiate with them what you'll be able to pay. So that's basically it.
All right. All right. Thank
you. Another question is that is this loan here from Ngozi Wode? Is this loan given to everyone that requests for it? Yeah, if you meet their conditions, the loans will be given to you. Anybody that applies and then meets the condition, why not? I should be able to give it to you. Okay, that answer your question, Madam Ngozi? All right, any other questions? Or do we go ahead? All right, I notice that there are no more questions. Everybody is behind cover. So we'll go back and then continue with our lecture, with our talk. Right, so go back. Start. All right, so we'll now continue with the second segment of the paper, and it's on what is entrepreneurship. What is entrepreneurship? What's your own understanding and definition of entrepreneurship? You have been in business for a while now. I'm sure you've been doing 1 or 2 things all this while. What is your understanding of entrepreneurship? So we'll look at what entrepreneurship is all about. Defining entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the process of starting and running a business enterprise. It involves investing capital in resources like people, in development of products and services to create viable enterprises. It is the capacity and willingness to develop, to organize, manage a business venture along with any of its risks in order to make a profit. So any business that you start, any enterprise that you start, okay, any business that you start running, you are already into entrepreneurship, okay? Any business that you start and you are ready to invest your capital, your resources, your money, okay, in people, okay, in development of products and services to create a viable enterprise is entrepreneurship. It is the capacity and willingness to develop, to organize and manage a business venture, and then with the ability and then the willingness to take risk in order to make a profit. At the end of every business, the business that you want to go into today, for example, at the end of every business, there is a profit motive. There is something you want to make out of it. Okay, you're not starting a business simply because of charity. Okay, not many people come take a loan to start charitable work. They want to start a business, take a loan to start a business that will provide them profit. And any business that we do involves a risk. Okay, life itself is about risk taking. Okay, so the fact that you are ready okay, to invest your money to develop, okay, to invest your money in people to develop a product, and you are ready to take the risk that comes with it for the purpose of making a profit, you are already into entrepreneurship. So entrepreneurship is about the willingness and the capacity and then the ability to be able to, okay, to take the risk of starting a business, services, in order to make a profit. That is what entrepreneurship basically is. There is always a risk factor and then there is a profit motive. Those are two key and critical things in entrepreneurship. Top and foremost is the profit motive. But then to be able to make a profit, you should be ready to take the risk involved in it. So the risk factor and then the profit motive are the two driving factors in entrepreneurship. Okay? The most obvious example of entrepreneurship is starting new businesses. So anytime you start a new business, that is entrepreneurship you are embarking on. The entrepreneurial spirit is characterized by innovation and risk-taking. Mark the word risk-taking again. And it's an essential part of a nation's ability to succeed in an ever-changing and increasingly competitive global market. So what we're saying here basically is that the entrepreneurial spirit is driven by innovation, by passion, okay, and risk-taking. And then, of course, when you are able to do that, the entire world is engrossed as you are with people in different parts of the world who are starting new businesses, who are trying their hands at new things. Today, for example, with the coronavirus pandemic that is on our hands, there are 42 different initiatives, people trying to create the vaccine. There's competition all across the world in the area of vaccine creation because there is a major challenge in the world. China alone is developing about 12 different sectors. Countries like the US are developing about 4, Britain about 3 or so, and some other countries also developing one vaccine or the other. So that is what entrepreneurship is all about. Innovation is innovation-driven, risk-taking, and of course, driven as it were by the passion of the people who go into that line of business. Who is an entrepreneur? Okay, so who is an entrepreneur? We'll define what entrepreneurship is all about. Entrepreneurship is anything that the moment you start any business, the moment you start any new business, you are already into entrepreneurship. The moment you are ready to invest your money, your resources in people, in products, in services, and you are ready to take the risk that goes with it for purposes of making profit, that is already entrepreneurship. Then who is an entrepreneur? Who is the entrepreneur today? All of you who are on this program today, who want to access the facility, are basically entrepreneurs. Entrepreneur is defined as a person who takes the risk of investing his money, his time, passion in development of a business or several business enterprises. That's what an entrepreneur is, okay? We have talked about the risk factor, okay? So here we are saying specifically any person that is ready to take the risk of investing his own money, his own time and passion in development of a business is already an entrepreneur, okay? Anything that we do in life, there is a risk to it. Many people are driven back by the risk. You want to go into a business, you say, no, I can't take that risk. There is no way you will succeed. Nothing ventured, nothing succeeded, okay? So you have to take that risk and then take the risk of investing your money. Because anytime you want to invest anything, you want to do anything, of course, money is important. That is why you're in this class, for example, you need the money. And the singular fact that you want to borrow money to go into what you think you want to do, what your passion drives you to do, that's you are an entrepreneur already, okay? So the person who takes the risk of investing his money, hard-earned money, or money borrowed taken as a loan, and his time and his passion, more than anything else, is a passion that drives that individual, the passion to succeed, okay? So because of that passion, he's ready to put his money into it, he's ready to put his time into it, and he's ready to take the risk, okay? Because at the end of when he succeeds, the profit motive, of course, will be satisfied. He will be able to make a profit. He will be able to build an enterprise that grows from the small to the massive, okay? So that's who an entrepreneur is, okay? Here's another definition of the entrepreneur that really sits very well with me. An entrepreneur is someone who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way down. That's by Reid Hoffman. Okay, you all know what a cliff is. Any person that is willing to take that kind of massive leap, massive jump off a cliff, okay, that's a major risk that you are ready to take. Okay, to follow a passion, to pursue your dream, to pursue your passion, and on the way down from that cliff, you are able to build a plane. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, the emphasis here, of course, jumping off a cliff is about risk taking. Okay, it's about passion, which means that you, no matter what it is, you have your sights set on something and you are ready to go the whole hog by jumping off a cliff, by taking all the risk involved, okay, because you have that passion that you want to meet, you want to succeed, okay, and on your way down from that cliff, you end up building an aeroplane, okay? That is achieving the goal you have set out to do. You know how impossible it is, okay? The Wright brothers who started the aeroplane, for example, were virtually like this entrepreneur, okay? They were falling off, they were jumping off the cliff because that was an unknown area in those days. But they decided to take the leap, they decided to take the jump, and at the end of it, even when people were laughing at them, jeering at them, that there would be major failures, they succeeded. And today we see what the difference is today. Okay. On our screen, we see a picture of a gentleman who for me typifies that kind of entrepreneur. The entrepreneur that jumps off a cliff, and then of course at the end of it all builds up an aeroplane. I don't know how many of you are familiar with this picture or who know him, but he is Elon Musk. He's a South African, but today he's a South African American because he's settled in America. Elon Musk is a major entrepreneur who invests a lot of money in all manners of entrepreneurial ventures. The first and foremost of which is known is his aerospace industry, where he builds aviation rockets, okay, builds aviation rockets and spacecraft, okay, that has been able to take people to the International Space Center, okay, took people to the International Space Center and then brought them back to Earth successfully. His aspiration is, overall aspirations and his vision is to be able to land people on the Mars and then colonize Mars, as it were, and take people to live on the Mars. And then, of course, secondly, to be able to establish a shuttle between the Earth and then the International Space Center, where people can go for as tourists for holidays and back. Okay, he has already started that by sending the first set of 4 or so people to the International Space Center, where they lived for about 6 months and came back to Earth successfully. So that is an entrepreneur. That is an entrepreneur that jumped off a cliff and today has built a massive spacecraft that has successfully taken people to the International Space Center. And Musk is also involved in another area of technology that is changing the world. Okay. We keep talking in Nigeria about the oil industry, our oil people say, oh, it's our oil that is sustaining the country and things like that. But we know of the projections being given today that by 2050, the oil that we have in the world today might become obsolete because of people like Elon Musk. Elon Musk today is pioneering electric cars, the Tesla. I'm sure many of you have had the Tesla. There's so many versions of Tesla today, and it's very, very popular in the US and in Europe, and especially in China, where they had all these challenges of smog and smoke. Okay, even before the coming of coronavirus, where people are wearing masks today in China because of the pollution, the rate of pollution in China, in most Chinese cities, where the space, the air, the airspace, the atmosphere is covered with smog and smoke and all manners of industrial waste. People were forced to be wearing masks to be able to breathe conveniently. So in order to reduce those kind of carbon emissions because of and its effect on climate change, people like Elon Musk are investing in the area of electric cars, hydro cars, that's cars driven by water. And the projection is that by 2050, most of the cars in the world will be electricity-driven cars. And then our oil will be as wasteful as anything else. And that is why when the federal government is emphasizing on diversification, moving away from oil, those are some of the factors that explain why more and more of our people are talking about diversification. So that is Elon Musk for you, a major entrepreneur, a major success when you talk about entrepreneurship. So who is an entrepreneur? This a final definition. Entrepreneur is any individual who starts a new business venture, a company. He arranges the business deals and takes the risk in order to make profit or create social change. Okay, so basically that's we've defined that already. The risks element is there, the profit motive is there, changing social change are all components of it. People like Mark Zuckerberg, with what they have done in the social media industry, have created a lot of social change. Okay, so these aspirations. Okay, so these are some of the things. That's who is an entrepreneur, an individual who is ready to start a new business, take the risk, of course, with the intention of making a profit. The profit motive is always very, very key and important. So what does an entrepreneur do? What does an entrepreneur do? As an entrepreneur, what do you do? Okay, if you have an idea of what you do, then of course you know what an entrepreneur does. An entrepreneur identifies a need that no existing business addresses and determines a solution for that need. Entrepreneurial activity includes developing and launching new businesses and marketing them, often with the goal of selling the business to turn a profit. An entrepreneur who regularly launches new businesses, sells them, and then starts new one is a serial entrepreneur. Additionally, although the term entrepreneur is often associated with startups and small businesses, any founder of a successful household name business began as an entrepreneur. What we're saying here basically is that an entrepreneur is any person who within an environment or a community identifies a need that no business already provides a solution for, or no business already addresses. That is an entrepreneur. You have identified a challenge, a vacuum, a gap within your community, and you decide to fill it. That's an entrepreneurial activity. That's what an entrepreneur does. If you are within a community, for example, I'd like to give this example. If you are within a community, for example, and you find that people within that community, okay, you've just gone settled in that community, and find that people in that community draw their water from a stream. There's no potable drinking water. And you looked around and found that no business is addressing that challenge. There is a vacuum. There is a gap. People need potable drinking water, clean drinking water. And because of that situation, there is a prevalence. There's a prevalence of diseases in that area, and that is associated with the source of their drinking water. Then you decide to do something about it. You decide to sink a borehole, okay, to be able to bottle water or create or sachet water, start producing sachet water or bottled water for that community, for that environment. You are an entrepreneur. What you have done is entrepreneurial activity. You have identified a problem, a challenge, a vacuum, and you are providing a solution for it. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay? You come into an environment, you find out, look, people within that environment on a day-to-day basis have to go to the next community to be able to buy their bread, to come and sell in that community. I say, oh no, these people here, the market is available. I will need to set up a bakery. Okay, you have noticed a vacuum. You have noticed the problem people have in going to another community far away to be able to buy bread and bring to that community to sell. You are providing a bakery. That is an entrepreneurial activity. You have seen the gap, you've seen the vacuum, and you are filling it. That is what an entrepreneur does. Okay, in deciding your own line of business, what did you notice? What vacuum are you trying to close? Or you simply want to, you notice that there are some businesses within the environment that are profitable and you want to also join in that line of business to compete for the market. Different things drive people, different issues drive entrepreneurs. So something must drive an entrepreneur in terms of the goals that he seeks to achieve. So that is what drives an entrepreneur, and that is what an entrepreneur does. So let's look at examples of successful entrepreneurs. We talked earlier about Steve Jobs. Okay, he's a later tech leader who started the Apple computer in the garage with his friend Steve Wozniak, and okay, which grew up today to be a dominant tablet, smartphone, and computer company that it is today. I gave the example earlier where I said Steve Jobs and his friend Steve Wozniak, they started the Apple computer in the small garage of their family, of their parents' home. Today, Apple computer is a major industry in the world today. Sorry, just a minute. Sorry, just a minute. Sorry, just a minute. So today, it's Apple Computer is a major company today. Okay, with an income of over $21 trillion. And I compared it with Nigeria that has an income base of just $448 billion. That is the whole country compared to one single company. Okay. I remember very well when Bill Clinton came to Nigeria around 2002, 2004, and he said Nigeria should begin to look beyond what is in our soil to what is in our head. Okay, and this basically typifies that example. It's what is in our head that is more important than is what in our soil. And because we continue to concentrate on what is on our soil, the oil. But what comes out of our head is much bigger than what comes out of our soil. So that is the Apple computer. It typifies that. The same also with Bill Gates. You all know Bill Gates. He's the creator of Microsoft, founder and creator of Microsoft. In every home today, any computer that you have, okay, has a Microsoft product in it. And each time you buy a computer and a Microsoft product, you are contributing money to Bill Gates' wealth. Today, he is one of the world's wealthiest individuals, okay, and a global leader. And then he has moved away from. Sorry, let me rehydrate myself a bit. Today, he has moved away from the IT, having resigned from Microsoft. Of course, not in his entire interest, and he's pursuing some other passion, especially in medicine, where he's assisting the world in the creation of vaccines all over the place. Nigeria recently became polio-free on account of people like Bill Gates' contribution. He's involved with the fight against malaria all over the world. And today, he's also one of the leading figures in the production of vaccine for the coronavirus situation we have found ourselves in the world today. So these are people who started small, started as small SMEs, entrepreneurs, to be what they are today. I've given the example of Elon Musk already. He's the founder of SpaceX, the aerospace and rocket manufacturing company, the Tesla and electric company, and the solar product company. He's also, like Bill Gates, contributing billions of his dollars into philanthropic activities to help in the fight of all various manners of ailments in the world today. We have pictures of Steve Jobs. He is late now. The world lost Steve Jobs as a young man in 2011. And of course, Bill Gates. And then, of course, the in-person now, Mark Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg is the founder and owner of Facebook. Okay, he saw the need for interpersonal communication among people and then developed what is today the social networking service called Facebook. And he did that from the Harvard University dormitory. In 2004. In 5 years' time, by 2009, the business, which previously was simply a networking service among his friends and colleagues and, in the university, had grown to about 500 million users just within the space of 5 years. Okay, and today, Facebook has over 2 billion users, and people are in touch with each other on a day-to-day basis with an annual revenue of over $6 billion. So you can see what just one company is bringing in terms of revenue to an individual and his company. Compare that to our oil, for example, today. Today, we're not able to generate that much with our oil in the oil sector. Each time there is a heat, each time there is a problem in the oil market, of course, Nigeria runs into one challenge or the other. So let's look at the Nigerian entrepreneurship market sector. Here are examples of 5 successful Nigerian entrepreneurs. We are familiar with these figures, I believe. Tony Elumelu, Adenuga, Dangote, Tedola, Mrs. Awoshika. These are Nigeria's successful entrepreneurs. Tony Elumelu, for example, started out from as a young in the banking industry, where today he is a major player. He has left the bank in terms of direct services, but he's into other areas promoting other entrepreneurs. Okay, Adenuga, of course, we know him with Glow. Then Dangote, who is today Africa's richest, wealthiest person, involved in cement, sugar, oil and gas, and a host of other businesses. Dangote's business we're all familiar with, I'm sure. We had a story about how he started. He used his pocket money to buy sweets and sell to his colleagues in primary school. And then later in life, he took a $500,000 loan from his uncle to finance his own business. Today, the story is all over the place. Dangote has turned out to be Africa's richest person. Tony Elumelu made a fortune in banking, and today he's empowering so many new entrepreneurs across the African continent. This is an example of the efforts of Tony Elumelu, for example, on a year-to-year basis. But because of the coronavirus this year, we haven't seen the regular outing that he's been having on a year-to-year basis with respect to promoting entrepreneurs. He's looking forward, trying to see how he can be able to create the next generation of entrepreneurs, okay, by providing them soft grants ranging from 5 million to 20 million for them to go into their own line of business to see how they can be able to replace them when their own time is up. So that is Tony Elumelu's own way of contributing to entrepreneurship development, much the same way as the AGSMEIS loan scheme is trying to promote and then generate the next group of Nigerian entrepreneurs. Okay, I hope at the end of the day, in the next few years, among those of you in this class, we'll also begin to talk about you in the same light. All right, there is the picture of another young man on our screen. I don't know how many of you know him, but he also is a major entrepreneur in this country today, and he typifies the example of what entrepreneurial life is all about. Okay, his name is Nnamdi Ezebo. Okay, how many of you have heard of Nnamdi Ezebo? Nnamdi Ezebo is the founder and CEO of Slot Nigeria and co-founder of Techno and Infinix phone brands in Nigeria. That's one of the fastest selling mobile phones in Nigeria today. The story of Nnamdi Ezebo is very, very fascinating. Like many young Nigerians after graduation and doing his NYSC service, he went around searching for white-collar jobs, but couldn't find any. So what did the young man decide to do? He decided to join a computer repair shop as an apprentice. Okay, and after settling and learning the tricks, the trade, he went out and started his own business. In the course of selling computers, he now veered into selling cell phones also, because of course cell phones were becoming very popular at that time, and more and more people were carrying cell phones around. But what he found intriguing was that many people came to his shop with 2-3 phones in their hands. And he saw the kind of the burden that constituted. And then the idea came to him that instead of having Nigerians carrying 2-3 phones at a time, why wouldn't he now explored the whole idea of creating a phone with dual SIM. That's how the whole idea of dual SIM came, dual SIM phones. There was an innovation. It hasn't existed anywhere before. But because of the typical Nigerian situation, the idea came to him. Okay, he saw the gap. Okay, he saw the vacuum and said, why wouldn't I key into this? Okay, he approached a Nokia phone company, you all know Nokia, and asked if they could create a phone, a handset with dual SIM. And Nokia rejected that idea, preferring instead to develop, to sell more phones than create one that has dual SIMs and then limit the number of phones that they're able to sell. Found a young Chinese chap who was working with a cell phone company previously, and then floated the idea. And the young man bought into that idea. And then, of course, that is how Techno started. Like they say, that is the story behind Techno phone today. They started producing the Techno phones with dual SIM, and then of course they became one of the fastest selling phones in the country. And then of course they moved on to the Infinix phone brands, also with similar provision. And today, these two phones are the fastest selling phones in Nigeria today. And they, of course, are able to meet a certain segment of Nigeria's population that are not able to maybe afford the iPhones and then the Samsung, but then they are able, these are phones that also provide the same services with these two major brands, okay? That is the story of Nnamdi Ezigbo. So that is how entrepreneurs start, okay? Like I said, it is our hope that in the near future, we'll also be able to hear your story of how you started out, okay? So let's look at four types of entrepreneurship, okay? 4 types of entrepreneurship. This was actually developed by Joe Abraham. He identified 4 types of entrepreneurship. The first is the innovator. This starts a business for his passion and for his innovation. Then there's the specialist. There's these highly skilled experts who also go into business and then starts packaging all manners of business enterprises. Then the opportunist. These are typically what I described earlier, somebody who sees an opening, a vacuum, and then decides to fill it. That is the opportunist. Then the builder. This type of entrepreneurs believe in building empires, massive empires and infrastructure. So those are the 4 types of entrepreneurship that Joe Abraham identified. Joe Abraham, in his book, The Entrepreneur DNA, identified that all entrepreneurs are not wired the same way, but that they fall into 4 distinct categories. That's for every entrepreneur, there is something that drives him. Okay? We found that there is something that drives each entrepreneur. No 2 entrepreneurs are the same. They come driven by different passions, different desires and dreams. Okay, so he identified the builder. So the builder believes in building massive empires and infrastructure. Okay, he builds highly scalable businesses and very fast at it. If you go to a place like South Korea, for example, South Korean businesses are driven by builders. That is where you find them building massive empires, the Samsungs of this world, the massive ship companies. South Korea builds some of the most massive ships you can think about in the world. It's a country of the builders. The opportunists, okay, this sees an existing gap and provide a business to service that gap. Individuals wired with this DNA are highly optimistic master promoters. They enjoy marketing and selling. Okay, they sniff out well-timed money-making opportunities, jump in at the right time, ride the wave of growth, and then jump out of the business. Somebody like Richard Bryson is giving an example of an opportunist. Yeah, I'm sure you are familiar with Richard Bryson. He was in Nigeria sometime, but he's the promoter, he's the owner of the Virgin Airlines, the Virgin Airline, Virgin Music, Virgin Railway line in the UK. Okay, he sees an opportunity. He came to Nigeria and found that many Nigerians are traveling to Europe, and Nigeria does not have a national carrier. So he came into Nigeria and entered into an agreement with Nigeria, and they formed the Virgin Nigeria. Okay, that was an experiment that worked for some time, but because of so many interference from our politicians and the rest, he eventually had to back out of that line of business, and then the enterprise collapsed. But that is the kind of entrepreneur that he is. He sees a gap, and then he quickly goes to fill it. Just like the example I gave of the person with the sachet water, bottled water business in an environment where people are dependent on stream water for their drinking water. Okay, the specialist, this one packages skill and expertise into viable businesses. The specialist is very analytical. He is an expert, okay, who is averse to risk and anti-selling. So people with this kind of background are experts. They are specialists, very analytical. Bill Gates feels that example. I give the example of Bill Gates, who started the Microsoft company, built it to where it is, and then is now veering out into another area. He's taking his analytical mind into medicine. Okay, somebody who is into IT, but today when Bill Gates discusses vaccines and medicine for you today, you think he's a medical person. That is the mind of an expert. a specialist. Okay, whatever it is that he goes into, he comes with that expertise, that analytical mind to drive his business. Okay, the innovator starts a business because of his passion for innovation. Innovators do something they love. That is the thing about the innovator. They do something they love. When the opportunity comes along, they will tell you, I'm doing it not so much for the money, but the impact that this product or service will have on humanity. Okay, I'll tell you, I can do it for the rest of my life. People like Mark Zuckerberg falls into this line of this group of people, the innovator. Okay, he is driven by the passion of reaching out to people, connecting people all over the world. Okay, all the money that Facebook is making, Mark Zuckerberg is only on an annual salary of $1. Okay, in his lifetime, he's giving away 90% of his income. Okay, in his lifetime. So that money means very little to him. But those who know him and who have seen him, you always see him in a t-shirt, in a polo t-shirt, jeans, and then some sneakers. So that is Mark Zuckerberg for you. Not so much the money, but his impact on mankind, what he's able to do to impact mankind. That is what drives Mark Zuckerberg. So what we are saying here is that we're saying that not all entrepreneurs are the same. What works for one does not necessarily work for another. Some are innovators, some are builders, others are specialists, and others are opportunists. The question we ask is, when you look at yourself, who are you? What kind of entrepreneur are you? Do you know your DNA? What drives you? Is it a passion for innovation? Are you a specialist? Are you a builder? Are you an opportunist who sees a gap and wants to fill? So it's important that you identify your own DNA, identify what drives you. If you're able to do that, that will help you in selecting your line of business, in the strategy, and in the team that you put together. You should know that not what works for one entrepreneur might not necessarily work for you. What makes one entrepreneur successful in a community might not be successful for you if you take it to another community. So you should know what drives you. You should know what gives you the desire, the passion to go and invest your money, your time in any line of business. That is the whole idea of knowing the type of entrepreneurs that we have. All right. So now let's look at the types of businesses for consideration. I want to believe that you have all made up your mind about the kind of business you want to go into. Some, of course, have not, but we'll show you the type of businesses that are available in Nigeria and across the world, really, that you can look at. It might trigger your talent and your passion, and then you want to follow it as a means of your livelihood as an entrepreneur. All right, so these are some of the types of businesses that you can consider. Fashion, and these are businesses that are actually supported by the bank for the award of this loan. Okay, there's fashion, there's farming, there's small-scale manufacturing, there's catering, there's buying and selling, there's events management, animal husbandry, school business, daycare, and nursery. Buying and selling might not be supported wholesale like that unless you are adding value, to whatever it is that you are buying to sell. Okay, let's give an example. If you, for example, travel to Kano and buy materials and bring to Abuja to sell, they might not support that. But if you go to Kano, Aba, and then buy materials and then turn them into fashion dress, add value to it by sewing them for people, for fashion purposes, that is adding value. That will be supported. That's the kind of buying and selling that will be supported. If you go to the bush market, for example, and buy rice and then come to sell, they might not be supported. But if you do that and then you are able to package it, bag it, brand it, and sell, that is adding value. It will be supported. That is seen as food processing. So these are the things that we need to look at when you want to go into consider buying and selling. Hospitalities and eateries, that's restaurant business, catering business, digital currency, we have photography, we have publishing, we have dry cleaning, cosmetic business, health services. These are all types of businesses that the bank supports. Okay, then vocational skills for consideration. There are also vocational skills that participants can consider. One of the major challenges we have in Nigeria today, in the country today, is that we have a dearth of vocational skilled persons. Okay, uh, in a city like Abuja, FCT, for example, I keep saying that this city is a city that will be under construction for the next 50 years. But if you go to most of our construction sites, you see vast estates in Abuja, vast estates all over the place, springing up all over the place. But if you go to most of these estates, you find that most of the vocational skilled persons that we have are not Nigerians. Most of them are drawn from places like Benin Republic, Togo, Ghana, and some of these West Coast countries. What about our own citizens? And then we have our young men roaming the streets, carrying shushan bags, carrying scissors for pedicure, okay, and the like, or pushing wheelbarrow, relaxing in the marketplace, doing nothing. But if they can be able to acquire these skills, they are needed in the construction industry. And that is an industry that will continue to be there for as long as you can think about. As long as people are building, there will be place for them. There will be opportunities for tiling, there will be opportunity for electrical connections, plumbing, carpentry, masonry. These are all vocational skills that people will always be able to find employment, but we are not able to do anything to fill that gap. So participants can consider this line of business and see how they can build a vocational institution where they can train young Nigerians to be able to acquire these skills and then go out and be useful to themselves in filling the gap that we have in the vocational skills sector of this country, especially in the construction industry. That is something that we can consider. Right. So we raised the issue earlier and said, before we start any business, there are certain things that we need to consider. You don't just jump into a business without considering certain things. You don't look at Mr. A because he's successful in one line of business, and then you just decide to jump into that same line of business. Okay? What might be true for him, what he might have seen to go into that line of business might not be the same for you. Okay, so there are things to consider. There are certain things that you need to consider before going into any business. So we'll look at those things that you need to consider before going into any type of business. First and foremost, you need to ask yourself the question, is there a demand for that line of business? Is there a demand for that line of business? I give the example of somebody in the community who saw people going to the stream, okay, to fetch water for domestic use, for drinking and all of that. And then he decided to sink a borehole. Of course, he found a patronage because there's a demand for that line of business. You come into an environment, because there are no tailors, you decide to set up a tailoring shop. Will there be demand for that line of business? What is the people's priority? I know clothing is an essential of life, one of the essentials of life, but do they have the resources to be able to patronize the kind of things that your tailoring shop is providing for them? These are things that you need to consider. Okay, so is there a demand for that line of business? This is one of the first things that you need to consider. Many businesses fail simply because the entrepreneur set up a business that sold products and services people don't need. So that is a problem there. Okay, you might think of a line of business, but people that might not need those products that you are providing. Okay, so you're a tailoring shop. You decide to set up a tailoring shop, but people cannot afford those products. They would rather go to Bendham Boutique and buy some cheap products. Okay, so you have to be sure that people really require that product. Okay, set up a business that produce or sell products and services that people cannot afford. Okay, your tailoring service is too expensive for the people within that environment. So they rather go to the market and see these people who put clothes in front of them and are selling it for 10 naira, 20 naira, and then pick it instead of coming to your place and paying 100 naira for you to sell any product for them. So these are things that you need to consider. Is there a demand for it? Okay. Can people afford it? Okay. Are the products things that people need? Do people need the water in that environment? If they do, definitely you succeed. but they might not. So these are things you need to consider. You will need to ask the question, are there other people doing similar business, or are you bringing something new to the table? Are there people doing similar business? Okay, is this, or are you bringing something new? If you come to an environment and you see that already there's a bakery in place, and you decide to go into that same line of business, what are you ready to do? Are you just coming in to saturate the market? Or is there something new that you are bringing into the bakery business? Okay, if you are starting a business in an area where the market is already saturated, the business might fail. Okay, so you come and then there are already several bakeries, and then you decide to come with another one. You are only going to add to the saturation of that market, and your business most likely will fail, because when people already have identified with some other bakery and then they are patronizing them, you are coming in might not change them unless there's something new that you are bringing. Okay, so it's important for you to do some research to find out areas where the competition is not properly serving the customer, and then position your business to fill that gap. Okay, so that is something that is very, very important that you should have at the back of your mind. Okay, you want to go into this line of business, you find that there are one or two already in existence, you need to do the research. Okay, is the competition stiff? Okay, are they not meeting the requirements of the customers in that environment? Okay, so there might be one or two bakeries, but you find that people still are not satisfied. So you decide to come in. That is understandable, okay? Because the competition that is already on ground is not meeting the demands. But when they are meeting that demands, then of course you should be careful what you are going in for. Unless, like we say here, as an entrepreneur, you have to work hard to differentiate your product and bring something different to the market that no one else has ever seen. Okay, that is a USP, unique selling point, your unique selling proposition. Okay, find out something that makes your business stand out is critical to the survival of the enterprise. So when you come to an environment or a city, to within a community, and you find that there already exists a line of business you want to go into, and you still want to go into that line of business, then you should work hard to differentiate your own products, to make sure that what you are bringing into the market is different, okay, and unique from what already exists. Okay, I've given the example severally of the milk industry in Nigeria. You're all aware that the pig milk has been dominant in Nigeria for so many years. Okay, and then of course the milk came in a water pump in a tin. Okay, and at that time was selling for like 50 naira per can. Okay, then of course from nowhere, 3 crown milk came into the Nigerian market. And what did they decide to do? They didn't come in with the liquid canned milk. What they decided to do was to come with the sachet milk, powdered sachet milk. And when pigs saw it, they were laughing at them. Where is this? Who are these guys going to sell this milk for? And then of course they were selling this sachet milk, powdered sachet milk, at 10 naira per sachet. Pig was selling his own canned milk for 15 naira per tin. And of course, the target of crown milk was the local Meshai, the local guy who sells tea and bread by the roadside. Okay, the small-time families who could not afford the 15 naira tin milk. And then because if you open the tin milk, there is the issue of preservation. When most people do not have light in their house, then how do you secure the distance? By the next day, the milk would have been spoiled. But if it's the sachet powdered milk, I mean, one sachet could do the entire family for their tea. And if you leave it, all you need to do is wrap it. You can use it the next day. It will spoil. And in no time, the sachet milk became the fastest selling milk in the country. That is Crown Milk's own unique, 3 Crown Milk's own unique selling point. They came in with sachet powdered milk. Okay, so they were able to penetrate the milk industry in Nigeria. And what happened down the line? Pig milk also had to now start producing its own powdered sachet milk, because a competition had come in, shown a new way, and then they found that the tin milk was no longer selling as much as it used to, because somebody else had come with an alternative. Okay, so find out what makes your own business stand out in order to survive. Three Crown found out what makes their own business unique, its unique selling point, and it was able to break into the monopoly of peak milk. And today, many other companies are coming and are selling sachet milk. Okay, things to consider before going to business. Determine what the needs are out there. What are the things needed out there? What are the things that people want out there? You have to determine them. What businesses exist to satisfy those needs? What line of businesses exist to meet those needs? If there is no business currently satisfying those needs, it means that no one has thought about that business. Okay, there is not enough market to make setting up that business viable, or the cost of carrying out the business in that environment could be too expensive. All right. So basically, what I say here that you need to determine what needs are out there. What do people need? Okay, are those businesses not in existence? Are they not satisfying the needs of the people? If no business currently, so it means that maybe no one has thought about it. Okay, like the water business, I gave the example. The fact that there was no water bottling company in that area making sachet water or bottled market means that maybe no one has thought about it. Okay, or that maybe there's not enough market for them to start that. Maybe the population within that environment was not large enough for them to be able to break even if they start producing sachet bottled water or sachet water or bottled water. Or maybe the cost of doing that business was too expensive in that environment. Maybe in an attempt to sink borehole, they found that there is a crust of hard rock, okay, in that environment. That's the borehole, drilling a borehole was too expensive for them to be able to break even. So this could be some of the considerations why people did not start that line of business. So these are things that you need to consider anytime you want to start a business, okay? Maybe nobody has thought about it, the market was not big enough, or the cost of doing that line of business was too expensive. So these are things that you need to look at in starting any kind of business in an environment. How do you determine what the needs are? Okay, we've said that you should find out what the needs are out there. Determine what the needs are out there. Now we are saying, how do you determine what the needs out there are? First, you can ask questions. You'll be surprised what you will find when you ask people questions about what the needs are in an environment. So you need to ask the question for you to know. Administer simple questionnaires. You can develop simple questionnaires and then administer them to people to respond to. When they respond to that questionnaire, then you'll be able to determine what the needs are out there. Or you can use social media. Today, social media is one of the fastest growing means of having feedbacks on things that you require. Today, most people are on Facebook, Instagram, and all of that. And then, of course, they pass it around. They post their all manners of questions around their products around, and then they're able to get feedback. With those kind of feedbacks, you can determine what the needs are there. Or you could read journals and online sites that give free information, or you can look around and observe. You'll be surprised what you find when you observe things. Okay, the example is given, of course, of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Bill Gates, for example, when he was starting out, okay, decided that in a decade's time, his own vision was to make sure that he placed a microcomputer on the desks of every office, eliminating manual typewriters and electric typewriters. Okay, he approached IBM Machine. IBM Machine was the largest computer company in the world at that time. And what the IBM specialized in was large frame computers, large frame massive computers that could occupy a whole floor in an office. And Bill Gates approached them and said, look, this line of computers are too enormous. We can break the computer down to small micro portable computers that can be placed on the desks of each worker. And IBM said, no, it was not possible. And they rejected it. Today, one of the greatest regrets of IBM is turning down Bill Gates' proposal, because Bill Gates' vision is what is driving the world today. In every home, in every office, there's no way you go today that you see a manual typewriter or electric computer typewriter, or is the computer, the microcomputer. In fact, computers have become so small that you put them in your hands as tablets today. The same also with Steve Jobs, okay? When they started the Apple company. And today, your iPhone, your iPads are virtually mini computers that you are moving around with in your pocket. Right? So, running down now, we're winding down. What are the main barriers to starting a small business? The main barriers to starting a small business. As I said earlier, anything that we do in life, you will run into some hurdles, some barriers. Okay? So what are those barriers for people who want to start small businesses? You and I, for example, today, I want to access the AGSMEIS loan scheme, but we are facing barriers. That is why we are in this program today. Okay, there must be some challenges that you are faced when you consider the whole idea of going into your entrepreneurship activity. These are the things that we want to look at today. Okay, first and foremost, money. Money is a major barrier to starting a small business. Not only a small business, of course, you start from small. But starting a small business, money is a major barrier. This is the most vital resource an entrepreneur needs to start a business, and probably the most critical barrier to starting a small business. Yeah. Recall we talked earlier about the challenges that people face when you want to start any little business. Okay, the chances that the government identified the missing middle. We talked about the missing middle for SMEs, and then the missing middle which government identified was financing, money. So that's exactly what we're saying here. It's a major barrier. Exactly how much you need to start a business and where are you going to get it from? Okay, if you determine that you need 5 million to start this business, where are you going to get it from? That is where the challenge is. Okay, lack of knowledge. Many small business fail not because of lack of capital, but because the entrepreneurs have little knowledge of that line of business. Some have the money, they have all the money they need, but the line of business they want to go into, they have little knowledge about that line of business. So lack of knowledge is a major problem. When are the peak and the low seasons for your business? You want to go into a line of business, you want to go into crop farming, for example, into tomato farming. When are the peak periods? Because in things like that, there are peak periods and then there are low periods. Okay? When are the peak periods for you to go into tomato farming? When are the low periods? Okay? There are some businesses that are not all year round. So you need to know when the peak periods are, and you need to know when the low periods are, so that you don't go into that line of business in the low season, when there's no market for it, when there's no rush for it. So you need to know. Sudden change in the environment, in the areas of government policies, for example. One of the challenges that many Nigerians have today is in the area of constant changing government policies. Not too long ago, the VAT, the taxes in the country, VAT was 5%. Today is 7.5%. So if you had projected your business along that line of paying tax of VAT of 5%, suddenly overnight is 7.5%. The stamp duty was 5%. Today is 6%. Okay, you are into maize farming because government has banned the importation of maize, and you are happy that you have the market. Then suddenly there was a change in government policy that allowing maize importation. Okay, that is a major tax. That is a major challenge there. So sudden change in policy will always affect your line of business. So you need to have that knowledge. Okay, will the business be able to generate cash immediately, or will you have to sell on credit? This is an area that again becomes a problem. Okay, if you are into any kind of service or production, you have to be sure. You have to be sure that there is the market that will pay you as purchases are being made. If people are going to come and offtake you on credit basis, you are most likely going to run out of that line of business. So you have to ensure that you sell whatever you produce, you'll be able to sell in cash, not on credit. Credit will run you out of the market. Are the products perishable? Okay, you have to determine whether the products are perishable and whether there's a ready market. And if they are perishable, are there preservation, means of storage and preservation? If there are no means of preservation, there could be a challenge. I give the example of the tomato crop farming, for example. We know that most of the markets, the farms are in the north, but the markets are in the south. Is there a means of preserving them? Today we find so many, you go to many of our markets in the south, many of the tomatoes brought from the north are rotting away Because by the time it gets there, the market might not be there, and then the products are wasted. So much losses, farmers and marketers lose so much in the process. So these are things that you have to take into consideration. How long does it take to produce your goods, and will it affect your ability to meet your customers' orders? Okay, your customers might place an order, but if the cost of if the period of production is too long, you might run into a problem there. So you should be able to know the kind of things you are producing, and if your customers will be willing to wait for you to produce the items before selling. That is a major challenge in that area. Determination. Okay, here is another main problem with starting a small business. You will find you have to develop the courage of a bulldog and maintain the determination that will enable you to smash through obstacles, as there will be many along the way. You need determination to keep you focused, pick up when you fail or face rejection, and to continue to look for new solutions and strategies to make the business a success. Here, what we're saying basically is that determination is key. I would say you need the courage of a bulldog, because most instances when we start any business, as we're taking up, there's every likelihood that we might face some kind of challenge, a little problem along the way. Okay, you might face rejection, you might fail in your first attempt, and many people, the moment they face those kind of challenge, they simply fold their hands and say, "I give up." But if you want to succeed in business as an entrepreneur, you have to continue to fight. When you fall, you stand. When you face rejection, change direction and move in another direction. Look for solutions, strategies to be able to make your business succeed. If not, you will find that you are not going to make any headway, because you are definitely going to face one form of challenge, failure, or rejection, or the other. But what makes a successful entrepreneur is his determination to remain focused, to be like a bulldog, determined, facing the obstacles and the challenges are on his path, and then crossing them and moving on. Face rejection in one place, look for another direction and move. Okay, you fail, you fall, you stand up and pick yourself up and you move on. Okay, fear, our greatest barrier. One of the main major barriers of starting business is fear. Fear. Fear is one of the greatest barriers to people starting new business. The question they ask is, what if I fail? What if I make a fool of myself? What if I'm rejected and people say no? I keep saying, the last few months, I keep saying, when I present this paper, I keep saying that in Africa, in Nigeria, we have not succeeded in overcoming fear. Fear is a major barrier to our people. We fear the dark, we fear night. We are not ready to take risk. The Western world has overcome fear. That's why they were able to send people to the moon. In Nigeria, in Abuja here, the Zuma Rock along us in Suleja, no Nigeria has been able to scale and climb that rock. But some young European chaps came to this country some few years ago, and within an hour had climbed that rock. Well, people are superstitious. They say if you climb that rock, you will face one form of juju or the other, one form of nightmare or the other, and nobody has attempted it. Nobody has attempted it because we have not been able to overcome fear. We are still held down by superstition, by unnecessary fears. And that's why the Western world today have a space station in the orbit. And every now and then, you find people living in that space orbit for over 6 months, over a year. And every now and then, supplies are taken to them and back. No African has been able to make that trip so far. So fear is a major problem for us. And if you have to continue to have all that fear, you're not going to make any inroads. Okay? Because if you keep asking yourself the question, what if I fail? So what if you fail? People fail, but they don't give up. What if I make a fool of myself? So what? You see yourself, you're making a fool of yourself. Nobody's business. Okay? Time, they say, heals. In no time, people forget and you move on with your life. But you know what you want. You remain focused on what you want. Even if you are rejected, so what? Okay? People like Bill Gates, I told you about Bill Gates, who was turned out by IBM. Thomas Edison, who created the electric bulb, tried more than 10 times before eventually succeeded in creating the filament. Honda, one of the popular Honda series brand in the world today, when they started in Japan, Honda was laughed at and told that there was no way he was going to succeed. Today, the Honda brand is one of the major automobile companies in the world today. I give the example of the Wright brothers when I was talking about the entrepreneur who jumps off a cliff and builds a plane on the way. When the Wright brothers were constructing their plane to fly, people say it was impossible. There was no way you could build a large body metal that will fly in the air. Today, flying the space. Today, aeroplanes are all over the place. Massive jumbo jets are flying all over the place. Made the world a small and global village. Shorten the distance between countries. Thousands of miles, people are able to go within a matter of hours. That is the foresight. That is the vision of people like the Wright brothers who were rejected, who were laughed at when they came up with the idea. So if we don't overcome fear, we are not likely to make any inroads. Lack of support. That is another major area where small businesses face problems, okay? Lack of support. And this are in the area of funding. Few financiers are willing to support small business startups, okay? I'm sure many of you must have approached people when you came up with the idea of the entrepreneur business you want to go into, but you couldn't find the people to provide you with the finances, and that's why you want to seek for this loan. Funding is a major problem. People who you see are affluent, you approach them, they'll tell you, sorry, I don't have the money. Don't think because you see me looking good, buying new cars or living in a big house, that I have the money. That is the reality of our time. Funding is a major problem, lack of support. Legal and regulatory support, okay, difficulty in fulfilling registration requirement for companies. I gave the example earlier, I told you earlier that in the next few days, we'll be taking another topic called business law, where we'll be discussing all issues related with legal and regulatory requirements in running business in Nigeria. I talk about the ease of doing business and all of the things that you need to be able to establish a business in Nigeria, to run a business in Nigeria. These are major areas where people who want to start business rarely find a place. Many of those who have come on this program before have always asked the question, we want to register a business, how can we go about it? Can you people help? These are areas, because these are things that I'm sure many of you have considered over time, but you find that how to go about registering a business is a major challenge in the first place. So that is one of the problems that small businesses fail, lack of support in the area of legal and regulatory support for that line of business. Staying power, that is another main problem. Staying power is like your determination. Okay? Many entrepreneurs like the staying power. The moment they face a few challenges, they quickly give up. So we're saying that if entrepreneurship is what you really want to go into, then you should be ready to stay the course and not give up. If you face the first challenge, the first hurdle, the first barrier, don't give up. Don't put your hands on your head and then walk away. No, find a way around it. Find a solution. Keep trying. The door will open. You'll find a way of going through it. Okay, that is what an entrepreneur spirit should be. Okay, the determination, the passion that drives you on and on and on until you are able to break down the door, break the ice, and for you to succeed. Okay, you have to be patient. Entrepreneurship is not a quick fix strategy, but a marathon. Like I say, it's a marathon. It's not just a short distance race. It's not 100 meters. It's a 3,000, 5,000 mile race. Okay, so that's what you need to do. So now we are entering the last section of this paper, sources of funding for small businesses. That is the last segment. Where are the sources of funding? Okay, the government has identified the missing middle, that's finances. Okay, we're seeing the barriers faced when small business people want to start their own businesses. And one of the first problem, the first barrier is money. Okay, how much you need, where is the money going to come from? So now we are going to look at the source of funding for small business, the source, where you are going to find the money. Thank you. So the first source of money, we have the list here. Equity, we have loans, we have grants, we have cooperative loans, and then we have crowdfunding. So let's take them one by one. Equity. Equity is an investment made in the shares of a business. It is made with an understanding that the investor will get a return on their investment an appreciation on the capital that they have invested. Equity is a good source of funding for entrepreneurs, as it is more long-term in nature and gives the entrepreneur enough time for the business to take root. So what I was saying basically is equity is an investment in shares. You hear of companies going into the stock market and giving out IPOs, okay? IPOs are placements of your product in the market for people to come and invest, okay? To come and invest in the business, buy shares from the business. The shares they buy, the money they bring in is what you now use in the business, in running the business. And of course, as you run the business and it becomes profitable, you then pay a dividend, you then pay shares to pay funds as invest shares from your investment. Okay, the dividend that you pay outcomes of the returns on the investment that you have made. So that's what basically equity is. Equity is a good source of funding for entrepreneurs because, as you say, it is a long-term investment. Okay, you don't invest in a company and then expect the company to start paying you dividends in the next few months or thereabout. You have to allow the entrepreneur for the company business to take full root, to become profitable. That is when now, when the business becomes profitable, that they will now begin to pay you dividends as a return on your investment. So equity is one of the major sources of funding small businesses. So where are the sources? What are the sources of equity? Equity can come from savings, from individual savings, from partners, from investors, from family. Savings, if you want to start an enterprise, you should learn how to set aside savings from whatever little resources you have. Savings take a lot of effort, discipline, and sacrifice to be able to put money aside for business to start up. Here, what we're saying basically is that business savings are not easy to come by. Savings are not savings are not easy to come by. Okay, most people are not able to save. We have talked about the kind of salaries that we get in this country. Minimum wage of 30,000. How much are you going to save? How much are you going to live on? How much is going for your rent? How much is going for your food? And all of those things. So when most people look at it and say, look, the money that I have is too small for me to be able to invest into anything. And that's basically what happens. But the advice we always give is that no matter how small that money is, learn to put something aside for the rainy day. That's the whole essence of savings. Okay, it takes a lot of effort, it takes discipline and sacrifices to be able to put money aside for the business to start. But savings is a source of equity. Those who are able to save, they could decide to put their money, invest in other businesses for them to be able to reap when the business becomes profitable. Partners, okay, people could choose to come and bring them their own savings or their own resources as equity in your business. Come and invest in your business. You start a business and then people come to partner with you, bring in their own, so that you start the business together. And then, of course, as it becomes profitable, you are able to share from the proceeds of that business. Investors, these are people who put their funds in something in order to get return. Okay, an investor is somebody who has ready cash, free-flowing cash that they can easily invest in your line of business for them to be able to reap something when the business becomes profitable. Then we have what we call the angel investors. Angel investors are wealthy private individuals who invest in business in exchange for some equity in the company. Most angel investors really like we say, wealthy private individuals, but they are also mentors. They identify young men who have aspirations or who have identified viable lines of businesses, and they come in, putting in their money, and then mentoring them, guiding them, directing their footsteps in the area of generating, of helping them to build that business. And of course, we'll not pressure those entrepreneurs until such a time that the business takes full root, and then they'll now begin to get some dividend from the business in terms of equity which they provided, in terms of the investment which they provided in that line of business. So angel investors are not necessarily maybe known to the individual, but of course they are there with their wealth and are ready to assist and mentor the young business entrepreneurs. We've talked about partners already, people who can come in and then want to partner with you and start a business and then pursue it to the mutual benefit of all of the participants. Then family and friends. For most people, and I'm sure that could be the experience of many of you, if you have any idea of a business, for example, the first set of people that you approach for funding, for finances, are most likely going to be your family members. You have spoken to your dad, your brothers, your sisters, your mom. You say, look, I have this idea of a business and I need money. Okay, if you can't support me, if you can support me with a little money, let me see how far I can go. And that is how so many people have started. We're giving the example of Dangote, for example, who took a loan of about 500,000 naira from his uncle. Okay, so the immediate family is where you always get those kind of finances. I've given the example of my son, for example, who on graduation said he wasn't going to go and look for any paid employment, but he kept coming up with all manners of ideas, all manners of enterprise, all manners of startup. And we became his first source of financing. I don't know how much we have put in it, but I can assure you that nothing has come out of that. But they keep trying their hands here and there. They come together as friends, pool their money together, register so many companies, and have tried their hands at these lines of business. All we try to do is to guide them, is to advise them on what they need to do, but always is the case. And I'm sure many of you have had similar experiences before, approaching your family members and friends to be the first source of funding, financing for your business. Loans. Loans, that is why we are here. The AGSMEIS loan scheme. Okay? Loans, a business loan is money given to an entrepreneur to finance the purchase of an asset or fund the business recurrent expenditure. So loans are money that is given to an entrepreneur, okay, to either purchase an asset or recurrent expenditure. Loans can either be interest-bearing or non-interest-bearing. In the former, the borrower and the lender agree on a rate. Okay, the loan is tenured for a specific period, and at the end of the tenure or maturity, the borrower will have to pay the loan to the lender together with the interest that has accrued. So what I'm saying basically here is that loans, some of the loans, like this one that we're trying to take, is an interest-bearing loan. And then, of course, there are non-interest-bearing loans. Okay, the interest-bearing loans come with specific interest. I've told you that most commercial banks, microfinance banks, have an interest of about 26%. But this current AGSMEIS loan is just 5% interest rate for this year, maybe 9% by next year. Okay, so most loans come with interest-bearing. But of course, there are no interest-bearing loans, like the ones the Islamic banking facilities. They are no interest-bearing. Okay, they have their own ways of sharing whatever profit that comes out of it and losses that come out of that line of business. Okay, but in the former one, where they are interest-bearing, the borrower and the lender, they agree on the rate. For this one is 5%. Then the loan is tenured. For this one is 7 years tenure, which means if you take the loan, 10 million naira, in 7 years time, you are expected to repay the loan, because that's the maturity period for that loan. And then, of course, you are expected to pay the loan back along with the interest that has accrued on it. 5% interest rate for those 7 years. That is what is expected for you to pay. Okay. Loans can be accessed from the following area: can be accessed from banks, okay, commercial banks, commercial money deposit banks, microfinance banks. These are the sources of loans for small businesses. Okay. The interest rates, of course, are higher in the commercial banks. Then partners, of course, we talked about partners. Partners could borrow you a loan so as to start a business, or they could agree on a 10-year loan, and when the loan is matures, then of course you pay back. Partners are always available for that. Okay, all they need to do is provide you with the resources, and then you run the business, and then you pay them when the loan becomes mature. Grants. Grants are funds given to small businesses by donor organizations. Usually the donor does not retain any interest in the business. However, to ensure that the money is actually used for the purpose intended, the donor will set up processes to ensure that the project is properly executed. Donor organizations are usually predisposed to giving grants to small businesses who are involved in social enterprises. Okay, Grants are given by government organizations, development partners, family trusts, non-for-profit organizations, and wealthy individuals. So like we see here is grants they are not loans, they are, as it are, grants given by donor agencies. There are so many donor agencies in Nigeria today. Many of them are foreign-based donor agencies, agencies like DFID, USAID, and a couple of them like that. They are there to support small businesses, those whose businesses they find are viable and are good for the community, for the society. Many of them are social enterprise projects that support the community, that take people off the street, help them build many young Nigerians who are unemployed and who have good business plans. And then they, of course, provide those grants for them. And while they are not directly involved in running that business and minority any interest, you don't have to repay that money, but they have a way of supporting such businesses. And most times they do not normally give cash for the individual, but they could provide other resources in terms of materials to help with the people who are running those kind of projects. Okay? And most of these grants come from government organizations, development partners, foreign development partners, family trusts, non-for-profit organizations like faith-based organizations. They are there to provide grants, and then of course wealthy individuals. In Nigeria, here are some examples of sources of grants. SMIDEN, we have DFID, we have Shell Life Wire Funds. Shell Life Wire Funds, these ones funds provided by Shell Development Corporation, that's an IOC, the international oil company that has been in the country for several years, over 60 years, prospecting for oil in the Niger Delta area. What they have tried to do is to provide funds, provide grants to young Nigerians in the Niger Delta area to take them away from militancy, from destructive activities, providing easily accessible funds for them, grants for them to start their own businesses, to support their communities, to employ their friends and family members, and then build their own businesses to be on their own and divert their attention away from destructive activities like the militancy going on in the Niger Delta area. That's what Shell Life Wire Funds are all about. Then we have another example, it is like Easy Business, $1 million grants. We have the Tiwat Anjuma grants, Bank of Industry, MTN. All these grants, all these foundations and businesses provide one form of grant or the other to Nigerians. Cooperative loans. Cooperative loans. For those who are working, cooperative societies are very common features in Nigerian government organizations and private organizations. Okay, a cooperative society is an independent group of people who come together to offer mutual support and cooperation to each other. Individuals within the cooperative contribute money, and these funds are either used to fund the activities of the cooperative or given out as loans to fund individual businesses of interested members of the cooperatives. Okay, most organizations you go to, you find them with cooperative societies. And then the members, of course, are drawn from that organization, where on a month-to-month basis, they contribute a specific amount of money into the cooperative. And such funds that are pulled together, the cooperative could use it for the benefit of the members. Some, for example, that I'm aware of, went in Abuja, went and bought land for the cooperative members, and then the members came and subscribed to it and bought those lands. Others, of course, provide those, the funds are available for them to take loans. Okay, they take all manners of loans for maybe for rent, for example, paying school fees, buying cars, or starting their own businesses. That's what cooperative societies do. They provide cooperative loans for their members and even non-members at an interest rate. Okay, crowdfunding. Crowdfunding, this is a new initiative based mostly on internet, where individuals pitch their businesses on the internet and invite members who might be interested in that line of business to contribute to the business by contributing money to it or buying shares into that line of business. And of course, as the business becomes profitable, those that made the contribution are able to get their money back. In other cases, most instances, the crowdfunding is for maybe social enterprise projects where an individual maybe who wants to make a contribution to a community project, could throw the idea on the internet, on his Facebook page, on Instagram page, and people who follow him on these projects are able to make contributions towards supporting whatever it is that he wants to do. In fact, we know that there are businesses today like the Forever products, like the Alliance products, and many of these crowdfunding businesses that have become international businesses today. The Alliance project, for example, started in the Philippines, but today it's a worldwide phenomenon where people come together, and then of course they have products which people buy of, and then they come in groups, and then they have downlines and all manners of marketing strategies. But all these are examples of crowdfunding businesses, from which people can get money to start their own businesses. I know so many young men who have, through this crowdfunding business with their downlines, have been able to generate so much money, and they have diversified and gone into other areas of business with the money they've been able to make in those areas. So that's what crowdfunding does for you. It's internet-based through Facebook, through the Instagram, through a whole lot of other means of bringing people together to contribute to common ideas, common goals, and common businesses, which is profitable to all those who invest in that line of business. All right, so these are the various sources of funding. We've come to the end of this paper, and so it's time for us to take questions and answers. I want to thank you immensely for your patience, for listening carefully. So we'll open the floor now so that we can discuss. If you have any questions that you want to ask, you can ask the questions so that we respond before we close. I know that you're all very busy people, so that I'll be able to allow you to go back to your business and continue with your business until we reconvene again tomorrow. So we're opening the floor. We are unmuting the mics now. So if you have any question, please feel free to ask the question. Thank you. Please unmute the mics. All right, any questions? Madam Ngozi, I can see you have unmuted. Any question? Any question for us? You have been with us from the very beginning. Yours was the only face we were seeing. All the others have taken cover. All right. Unplug your earphone. Unplug your earphone.
Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Hello? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, we can hear you now.
I want to first of all thank you for this wonderful class. I think I've learned a lot. But my question is, for someone that has not registered a business, how will such person start? Will he have to register first? Because there's a form that has been given to us to. What would be the first thing the person needs to do? Is it to go through the CAC first, or to, package his loan or her loan, and afterwards he can proceed on registering his company?
Yeah, okay, thank you. I think the last one is what you do. Like we said, the loan is a personal loan. So whether you have a registered business, a business name, it's not very necessary. The loan is coming in your own name. So first and foremost, the forms that we gave you, where you see name of business, just write your name, okay? Just write Ngozi Farms or Ngozi Fashion, and that's about that. So when you start running the business in due course, you can always register your company. But for this loan, for this purpose now, it's not very, very necessary that you have to register a company before you're able to access the loan. It's going to be given in your own name, and that's why they're asking for your BVN and nobody's going to ask whether you have a registered business or not. But down the line, as your business begins to grow, you can then register a company under which you can run your business, because the country will need you to pay taxes when you become profitable. All right? All right. Galaxy, you people didn't write your name, so we can hardly pick you out. Abubakar Saad, you have a question, sir? Yeah.
Oh, no, not really. No.
Okay, all right. All right. Somebody is calling. Is it Amuda? Amuda Ayewale? You have a question? You can unmute. Ekeze. So I thought I saw Ekeze. Victor Abidakum, you have a question? Go ahead. You can unplug your mic. You can remove the earpiece. All right. You cannot speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Great.
Okay, sir. I said you made mention of buying and selling, that you don't really accept all. Like, what about people intending to go into sealed food stuff? Like buying and selling of all this sealed food stuff.
Seafood stuff?
Yes, like all these raw materials, sealed ones, like all this semovita, all this Indomie and all.
No, unless you are going to produce your own semovita. If you have a maize processing plant, where you buy your own flour and then you are packaging it, that's the one that will be supported. What the bank wants is for you to add value. Okay, anything you do, you have to add value. That's why I say if you are into gari processing, cassava processing, and then you package it, okay, that is, which is like your semovita, for example, package, of course, that's adding value. That's what will be supported, but not to go to the market and buy semo and come and sell. No, that's not adding value. Okay, so you need to do something that adds value.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that's the value chain we're talking about, the agri-value chain processing, right? Yes, Mr.
Hello,
Okay,
sir.
sir. Okay, sir. Thank you very much.
Yes, please. All right, thank you.
Yes,
Samuel,
I say thank you for joining you today, because yesterday I was involved in promotion exam, so I couldn't even afford to join you much yesterday. Maybe.
Oh, sorry about that.
So the question I just want to ask is just that like is this loan for only civil servants alone? Does it mean any other, maybe any other person can join? Then another one is that a person that is retiring probably in about maybe 5 years time, and you said the duration for the payment of this loan is like 7 years. So if somebody is retiring probably like 5 years time, is it can the person take up the loan or whatever?
All right, good.
Those are my questions.
Question. All right.
Yes.
Well, the loan is not for civil servants alone. The loan is for all Nigerians. Okay. The loan is open to all Nigerians. And of course, you are aware that government only supports civil servants assessing or doing business only in the agri-related businesses. They won't support you going to set up a factory and things like that. But if you're in agri-related business, of course, they will support you. So, but all other Nigerians who want to go into any type of business at all, they will be supported. If you are retiring from the service in the next 5 years and the tenure is 7 years, it doesn't mean that you cannot go into that any line of business. If you want to go into poultry business, for example, you start from now. Of course, by the time you are retiring in 5 years' time, it's expected that the business must have taken strong foothold. And then by the time you retire, you will now retire into your poultry business full time. So it's really a good idea that you begin to think about along that line, okay? So that by the time you are retiring, of course, you already know where you are going into. You don't retire before you begin to think about what am I going to do next, okay? So it's advisable that now that you are still in service, you begin to think along that line in the agri-related and agro-allied line of business. Okay, so that's the advice I will give. It's open to all Nigerians.
Yes, then another one, sir, just finally. Yes. What is the maximum of that one can really sort for? What's the maximum?
Like I said earlier, if you are a startup is
Yes.
a business that you just have the idea, there's nothing on ground. The maximum amount that you can access is 5 million. But if it's an existing business means anything that you're already doing. If, for example, you have you're rearing few chicken at your backyard, it's already an existing business. What you want to do is expand it. Okay. If you have just maybe one sewing machine and already are sewing things for people who come to patronize you and you sew clothes for them, it's already an existing business you want to expand. For that one, the maximum amount of money you can take is up to 10 million naira. So that's it. Yes, 7 years repayment period. For this year, if you're able to access a 5% interest rate. So does that answer your question?
Yes, you have answered the question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Welcome, you too. Yeah, yes, Daniel Ekeze, go ahead. Ekeze, go ahead.
You talked about 5 sources of finance for entrepreneurs. And I want to take you on a plowing back.
About?
The repayment plan for this loan is said to be between 5 to 6 years or 7 years.
Yes.
In the event one, hello?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Can hear you loud and clear.
Yes. I said in the event one eventually secures this loan. Yes, one secures the loan. And yes, somebody wants to now repay before the actual limit for the loan to be paid. Wherein lies plowing back in this business?
I don't understand that again. Can you take it again? Can you take the question again?
We are talking about sources of, yes. In the course of the yes, very well. In the course of the lecture, you talked about sources of finance for entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Among other things, you talked about equity, you talked about loan grants, cooperative and crowdfunding.
Yes.
And nothing was mentioned about plowing back. Now I'm talking about if the loan has the payment plan for 7 years for the loan to be paid back, and someone wants to pay back within 5 years because he wants to plow back his profits, not save his lending business, so as to pay on time. Where lies that opportunity?
Yeah, sure. Nobody is tying you down that you must wait until 7 years are done before you repay the loan. No. If you take the loan in the first 2-3 years, you've made enough profit and you want to return the money, return the loan, and nobody is going to stop you from doing that. At 5% interest rate, if you're able to get a 5% interest rate, let's say you take up to 10 million, 5% interest rate is just 500,000 naira. So all you need to do, you are paying back the 10 million naira plus 500,000 naira, you return the money, and that's that. Okay, so nobody is tying you down. But if you want to spread it for those 7 years, then you spread it for those 7 years, paying on a year-to-year basis, maybe quarterly, 3 times in a year, and then spreading the interest rate across board in the same way. But nobody is going to insist that you must wait until the 7 years before you are able to repay. So if it's in 5 years' time, you are able to repay, fine, all fine and good. You understand? Are you with me, Daniel?
Very well.
All right.
Thanks a lot, sir.
Welcome.
Very well. Thanks a lot. That's taking.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You start. I ask another question again. Okay. Any other question? Any other question? All right. In the absence of any other question, we'll close the class now. And then we'll reconvene again the same time tomorrow. Our paper tomorrow is on financial planning and basic bookkeeping. Like we did today, we're also going to start with a pre-lecture quiz, which you'll be expected to take. As we're ending this one, we're also going to repeat this same quiz that we did before, so that we'll see the impact of this lecture on what you have learned. If you scored 60% or 70% pre-lecture, we want to see if at the end of it, you'll be able to score 100 now, which means the lecture has made an impact, okay? We won't expect you to score less than 70% again. All right, so that's what we'll do now. I want to thank you immensely for being a part of our day. Thanks for your contribution. Thanks for your questions. And then hope to see you again tomorrow. Thank you very much. Have a nice day ahead of you. All right. Thank you.